7.1 Part 1
When TV producer John Lloyd thought of a formula for a new quiz show, he decided to call it QI, which stands for Quite Interesting, and which is also IQ backwards. It's a comedy quiz where panellists have to answer unusual general knowledge questions, and it is perhaps surprising that it's particularly popular among 15 to 25-year-olds. Along with co-author John Mitchinson, Lloyd has since written a number of QI books, and these have also been incredibly successful. Lloyd's basic principle is very simple. Everything you think you know is probably wrong, and everything is interesting. The QI Book of General Ignorance, for example, poses 240 questions, all of which reveal surprising answers. So, we learn, for example, that you are more likely to be killed by an asteroid than by lightning, or that Julius Caesar was not, in fact, born by caesarean section. The popularity of these books proves Lloyd's other thesis, that human beings, and children in particular, are naturally curious and have a desire to learn. And this, he believes, has several implications for education. According to Lloyd and Mitchinson, there are two reasons why children, in spite of being curious, tend to do badly at school. Firstly, even the best schools can take a fascinating subject, such as electricity or classical civilization, and make it boring, by turning it into facts which have to be learnt by heart and then regurgitated for exams. Secondly, QI's popularity seems to prove that learning takes place most effectively when it's done voluntarily. The same teenagers who will happily choose to read a QI book will often sit at the back of a geography class and go to sleep, or worse still, disrupt the rest of the class.
7.2 Part 2
So how could we change our schools so that children would enjoy learning? What would a QI school be like? These are Lloyd and Mitchinson's basic suggestions. The first principle is that education should be more play than work. The more learning involves things like storytelling and making things, the more interested children will become. Secondly, they believe that the best people to control what children learn are the children themselves. Children should be encouraged to follow their curiosity. They will end up learning to read, for example, because they want to, in order to read about something they are interested in. Thirdly, they argue that children should also be in control of when and how they learn. The QI school would not be compulsory, so pupils wouldn't have to go if they didn't want to, and there would be no exams. There would only be projects or goals that children set themselves, with the teacher helping them. So a project could be something like making a film or building a chair. Fourthly, there should never be theory without practice. You can't learn about vegetables and what kind of plants they are from books and pictures. You need to go and plant them and watch them grow. The fifth and last point Lloyd and Mitchinson make is that there's no reason why school has to stop dead at 17 or 18. The QI school would be a place where you would be able to carry on learning all your life, a mini university, where the young and old could continue to find out about all the things they are naturally curious about.
Seven 1.
Lloyd and Mitchinson think that school shouldn't be compulsory.
What a ridiculous idea. If it wasn't compulsory, no one would ever go.
2.
Did you know that at the time of the French Revolution, only half the population spoke French?
How interesting. So what language did the other half speak?
7.4 Prefixes 1. Negative prefixes.
Immobile, immoral, impersonal, impractical.
Illegitimate, illiterate, illogical,
irrational, irregular, irrelevant, irreplaceable,
inappropriate, incapable, incoherent, incompetent, inhospitable,
unattractive, undue, unhelpful, unofficial,
disagree, discontinue, disembark, dishonest.
7.5. 2. Prefixes which add other meanings. 1. D.
Out means more than, better than, bigger than, etc.
2. I.
Mono means one.
3. U.
Re means again.
4. L.
Out means outside, not inside.
5. Q.
Ill means badly.
6. C.
Multi means more than one, many.
7. E.
Miss means wrongly.
8. H.
Anti means against.
9. O.
Up means higher, towards the top.
10. N.
D means remove or reduce.
11. K.
Post means after.
12. M.
Pre means before.
13. B.
Over means too much.
14. G.
By means two, twice.
15. P.
Co means together.
16. F.
Sub means below.
17. R.
Inter means between.
18. A.
Under means not enough.
19. S.
Super means above average.
20. J.
Auto means by yourself, by itself.
21. T.
Micro means extremely small.
7.6. Part 1.
Trafalgar Square in London has a plinth, that is, a stone base for a statue, in each of its four corners. On 3 of them, there are statues of famous historical figures. The 4th plinth was originally intended to hold a statue of King William IV on a horse, but, due to insufficient funds, the statue was never built. The use of the 4th plinth was debated for over 150 years, and finally, in 1998, the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts commissioned 3 contemporary sculptures to be displayed there temporarily. Shortly afterwards, the authorities decided to seek opinions from public art commissioners, critics, and members of the public as to the future of the plinth. Although various proposals were put forward for permanent statues, such as of Nelson Mandela or Margaret Thatcher, it was finally agreed that, rather than having anything permanent, works of art would be commissioned from leading national and international artists and be displayed there on a temporary basis. In 2005, the first work was unveiled, a sculpture of a pregnant woman by Mark Quinn, and since then there has been a succession of new works. It is considered the world's most famous public art commission. However, it is thought that the reason for not accepting any permanent statue there may be because the fourth plinth is being reserved for a statue of Queen Elizabeth II.
Seven point 7. Part 2.
This sculpture, called Nelson's Ship in a Bottle, was unveiled in May 2010 and was the first artwork on the fourth plinth to relate directly to Admiral Horatio Nelson, who stands at the top of the column in Trafalgar Square. It was created by the British artist Yinka Shoni Bare. The ship inside is a model of Nelson's ship HMS Victory. The bottle was made out of glass and was constructed by aquarium specialists in Rome, along with the giant cork. Unlike Nelson's ship, however, this ship's sails were made of different African cloths. Shoni Bare said of his sculpture that it was designed to specifically reflect on the relationship between the birth of the British Empire and Britain's present-day multicultural context. The sculpture, the fourth work of art to be displayed there, was on show until January 2012, and in 2015 it was voted by the public to be the best of all the sculptures that had been displayed up to that point. When the sculpture was removed, money was raised to buy it from the artist, and it was the first of the fourth plinth commissions to be relocated in London. It is now on permanent display in the National Maritime Museum. This statue of a boy on a rocking horse is called Powerless Sculptures, figure 101. It was created by two Scandinavian artists, Michael Elmgreen from Denmark and Ingar Dragseth from Norway. It was the fifth work to occupy the fourth plinth and was on display from February 2012 to April 2013. The statue, which is 4.1 metres high, was made entirely of bronze. The two artists based their concept around the idea of the many memorial statues of men on horseback which celebrate victory in war. This boy on horseback is vulnerable. Unlike traditional heroes, he is not competitive or aggressive. Rather, he represents the heroism of a child growing up. Talking about their work, the artists said, "We thought maybe we should celebrate some generations to come and hope that there will be a future where there are not so many war monuments." Installed in March 2018 and displayed until March 2020, the ninth work of public art was by Iraqi-American artist Michael Rakovitz. In 2006, Rakovitz started a project to recreate more than 7,000 objects of Iraqi art, which had been lost forever, either looted from the Iraq Museum in 2003 or destroyed at archaeological sites during the Iraq War. For the fourth plinth commission, Rakovitz created a sculpture that was part of this ongoing project, called The Invisible Enemy Should Not Exist. It was a life-size recreation of the Lamassu, the winged god that stood at the entrance to Nergal Gate in Nineveh, in present-day Iraq, from 700 BC until it was destroyed in 2015. This Lamassu was made out of 10,500 empty Iraqi date syrup cans, which symbolise not only how so much art was destroyed during the war, but also how Iraq's date industry, the country's second biggest export after oil, was decimated by the destruction of millions of its date palm trees. While his sculpture was on display, Rakovits also set up a pop-up kiosk across the square, which sold small books of recipes using date syrup, as well as small cakes and biscuits.
7.8. 1.
It really looks like the original statue.
2.
You can only see what it's made of when you look at it really closely.
3.
From a distance, it looks as if it's made of gold and precious metals.
4.
The artist seems to be trying not to replicate the lost statue, but to make something which looks similar, but is more connected with modern life.
7.9. 1.
Computer. Sculpture. Picture. Architecture. Capture. Creature. Culture. Feature. Furniture. Future. Leisure. Measure. Nature. Pleasure. Signature. Structure. Temperature. Texture. Treasure.
2.
Tourist. Allure. Endure. Immature. Impure. Obscure. Secure. Sure.
7.10.
First of all, the programme needed to know where John got the painting from in the first place.
So, John, how did you get the painting?
I was given the painting by Dennis Worth Miller, who was at the East Anglian School of Painting and Drawing with Lucian Freud. And I was given it when I was staying the weekend at Dennis Worth Miller's house in Wivenhoe in Essex.
So it was a present?
It was a present, yep.
The programme then decided to look into how Dennis Worth Miller had got hold of the painting, especially since he and Lucian Freud were not friends.
So, John, do you think that Freud gave the painting to Dennis?
There was never a case that Freud had given it to Dennis. The case was that Dennis had taken it from the barn.
The story was that during the Second World War, when Dennis and Freud were students, it was very difficult to get hold of canvases to paint on, so students often just left their used canvases in a barn at the school, and then the canvases were reused. Dennis told John that he had just picked up the canvas, Freud's painting, to reuse, but then he didn't. He just kept it. The next question the programme focused on was who the portrait was of, in case this might give some more clues about the identity of the painter. After some research into the archives, a note in Dennis's handwriting was found which identified the man in the portrait, the man in the black cravat, as a certain John Jameson. The programme found letters written by John Jameson which made it clear that he knew Lucian Freud quite well and had met him on a number of occasions, including at the painting school in 1939. So it was perfectly credible that Freud had painted Jameson exactly at the time that Dennis had said. The programme then decided to focus on the canvas itself and took it to an expert in the scientific analysis of paintings called Libby Sheldon. Sheldon put the painting under the microscope and made a fascinating discovery. There was a long hair embedded in the picture which looked like a human hair and which might give them some DNA evidence. The hair was removed from the picture and taken to be analysed, and at the same time they were able to get a DNA sample from one of Freud's cousins to compare it with.
John, what did you think when Libby Sheldon found a hair in the painting?
I was absolutely gobsmacked. I hadn't even thought that there'd be a possibility that anything like that could exist.
Did you assume it was Freud's hair?
I didn't. I didn't assume it was Freud's.
And when the results came back, unfortunately, it was not a match. The hair was definitely not Lucian Freud's. How did you feel, John, at that moment?
I was very disappointed when I found that it wasn't a hair from Lucian Freud's head, because I got swept along with adrenaline and excitement that goes with one of these TV shows, because of course you're not only dealing with the presenters, you have the producers and the researchers and the film crew. We got to know each other so well at this stage, and none of us knew. So we were all biting our nails at this moment, and when that was delivered, none of us knew the result. And so we'd been sitting in the laboratory for 3 hours before that was delivered, and I was really biting my fingernails right down.
The real mystery, of course, remained. If it really was a Freud painting, why had he denied it? Was it because it was an early work and he was ashamed of it and didn't want to be associated with it? Fake or Fortunes experts contacted Freud's solicitor, Diana Rawstron, who had known him very well. They had often talked about his paintings, and when she checked back through her records, she found that in 2006 they had discussed The Man in the Black Cravat, and Freud admitted that in fact he had started the painting, he had painted the body, the shirt, the neck and part of the face, but that someone else had completed it. This was very exciting. The programme now had first-hand evidence that the painting was partly by Freud. So they went back to Libby Sheldon, the expert in the scientific analysis of paintings, and asked her to see whether she thought it was possible that the painting had been made by two different people. After examining all the paint pigments and the brushstrokes, she had no hesitation in saying that she was absolutely certain that the painting was done by a single artist. So she thought that as Freud admitted to having started it, then he must have finished it too.
John, what did you think when you heard the news that Freud had admitted to starting the painting?
I could have fallen over backwards. It was one of those moments when I did the action you're told not to do. I looked off camera straight at the producer who had become actually a friend, and I was very close to at that stage. Just looked at her in just utter disbelief that this had happened.
Finally, after collecting together all the evidence they had uncovered, the programme asked 3 experts on Freud to give their verdict. The letter with their decision was opened live on camera at the end of the programme. And this is what they said.
7.11.
Finally, after collecting together all the evidence they had uncovered, the programme asked 3 experts on Freud to give their verdict. The letter with their decision was opened live on camera at the end of the programme. And this is what they said.
We believe this to be a work that Lucian Freud did at art school, most probably in 1939.
John, you must have been over the moon. Why do you think Freud denied that he had done the painting?
I'm absolutely certain that the reason he denied having done the painting to other people was because of the war that was going on between him and Dennis Worth Miller. They fell out when they were aged, when he was 17 and Dennis Worth Miller was 21 or so. And there were times when they were together and it was okay. Dennis was certainly a very, very difficult character.
And regardless of the fact that it's by Freud, do you love the painting?
Whether I love the painting or not is a very interesting question, because a lot of people, particularly on social media, when it was seen on the television, were saying, but it's hideous, it's absolutely terrible. I love it. I've always loved it. And particularly because it just clicked straight away with me that it was so like Freud's early drawings. I love the shadows. I love the way, the exaggerated face. Everything about it just appeals to me greatly.
Would your feelings have changed if it had turned out not to be by Freud or to be a fake?
My feelings for the painting certainly wouldn't have changed if I found it wasn't a Freud, because it mustn't be forgotten that I have been at that stage for many occasions. I've been to meet people, very important people, who've told me it is the most wonderful early Freud they've ever seen, and then snapped at me saying it's a fake 3 weeks later, with no explanation as to why we've gone from hot to cold. And so my emotions have gone really high, thinking, wow, I now know this is a Freud, to absolutely crashing down to saying it isn't. And I know from that my emotion towards the painting has never changed.
Would you ever sell it?
What I'd always said that I was going to do with the canvas was put it into my estate and set up a trust to pay for people to go to the Royal College of Art. I was in a situation where there was no money for me to do further education, and I got a state bursary, like a scholarship, to go to the Royal College of Art, and that saw me through my time there. So it would seem appropriate that it should go towards helping someone who otherwise wouldn't be able to get there to do further education.
John, thank you very much.
7.12. 1.
John, what did you think when Libby Sheldon found a hair in the painting?
I was absolutely gobsmacked. I hadn't even thought that there'd be a possibility that anything like that could exist.
2.
I was very disappointed when I found that it wasn't a hair from Lucian Freud's head, because I got swept along with adrenaline and excitement that goes with one of these TV shows.
3.
So we were all biting our nails at this moment, and when that was delivered, none of us knew the result.
4.
John, what did you think when you heard the news that Freud had admitted to starting the painting?
I could have fallen over backwards.
5.
I've always loved it, and particularly because it just clicked straight away with me that it was so like Freud's early drawings.